Marcel, the Shell with Shoes On is a feature adaptation comedy of a series of shorts created by Dean Fleischer Camp, Jenny Slate, and Nikki Paley. Slate and Fleischer also played the two leads. It's told in a mockumentary style following Marcel, who's unsurprisingly a talking shell with shoes on, hence the name. There isn't too much to that. And his grandmother, Connie, as well, as shot by amateur filmmaker Dean, who discovers them when he moves into an Airbnb. Marcel is charming, thoughtful, curious, loving, and hilarious. And it isn't long before Dean and the rest of the world fall in love with him thanks to Dean posting some of Marcel's highlights on YouTube. Through gentle interactions unveiled as we discover the real world through Marcel's eyes, we begin to learn about he and Dean's backgrounds and the struggles that they faced in the past. This is a live-action stop-motion animation movie where the animated Marcel blends it seamlessly into the real world, and that really draws you in. You're never distracted or anything less than completely bought in and captivated throughout. And that also speaks to the banter and the rhythm of Fleischer and Slade as Dean and Marcel, who interestingly enough were a couple and broke up throughout the process of this. And breaking up and moving on is a theme of the movie, and when you know that, it actually hits a bit more. They not only have to navigate scripted material though in a believable, offbeat, true-to-life documentary rhythm to fully immerse you, but they also have to do that while also straddling the line between live action and animated, which is an absolutely astounding feat. How little you think of any of that while you're watching the movie, just because you're bought into it throughout. In case you can't tell, I loved this movie, and I recommend you change whatever plans you have immediately to see it. It had me smiling ear to ear from start to finish. I watched this in the Lighthouse Cinema, which was about 75% capacity for the screening, and having a nearly full screen made it a really fun time, as we're all charmed to death by this movie in a way I can only compare it to the likes of Pixar movies at their absolute peak. And the laughter that was in it and the laughter that the movie evoked, I can only describe that as kind of giddy, as like childlike, and that's from adults. We're just sitting there giggling away the entire time. It is brilliant. It's a bit of a weird comparison, but Marcel is kind of like, and the humor that he has is kind of like the first time you ever watched Michael Cera, and that he kind of catches you off guard with incredible one-liners without even seeming like he's trying. It's just brilliant. I won't ruin the joke, but there's one about like someone who signs off going peace and love, and Marcel just riffs on that, and it's hilarious. Everyone was just like in knots laughing by the end of it. And of course, all of that just conditions you for when the movie decides to take some left turns and turns the emotional screw. And by that time, they then have you hook, line, and sinker, and you're ready and conditioned to go along with what they want. However, what I loved about this movie was that if you hear people talk about the likes of Coco and Inside Out, and for the record, Inside Out is one of my favorite all-time movies, so when I'm comparing this favorably to it, take note of that for how much that I liked it. You hear people speak in almost traumatized terms at times, describing the movies as breaking them, for example. Marcel the Shell with Shoes On has no interest in breaking you. It's not a tough time to watch. It's not a difficult kind of hill you have to overcome to get to like a happy ending and so on. Fleischer looks the world dead in the eye with the script, so it doesn't avoid heavy topics either with the script, the direction, and the performances, but the vision this movie gives you is kind. It's of a gentle and of a hopeful world as well. Despite this being a story about an inanimate object come to life in a shell, it's really about the universality of experience, no matter who we are, no matter what we experience, and kind of the things that bring us closer together. And that's, again, what another aspect that makes the movie so positive and so likable. And what I find really interesting is that this was released here on the same weekend as Ant-Man Quantumania. And in much the same way that last year, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness was released at the same time, at least in Ireland, as Everything Everywhere All at Once. And those two then stood in contrast as, well, this is what you can do in a multiverse movie. With Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, you kind of look at that and compare it to Ant-Man, and you're like, actually, this is what you can do. This is how much you can do this well when you kind of shrink a character down to a certain size. You see the world through their eyes, which Ant-Man, for some reason, despite that being the character's premise, has no real interest in doing. This schools it. And again, it's an A24 project, absolutely schooling a Marvel project and what the Marvel project is going for. The one thing I will say, and again, this is nothing to do with the movie or like it isn't a criticism of it in any way, is if you have young kids, they may find it a little bit boring if they're very young and they're kind of used to, you know, big, colorful lights flashing and action all the time. It is PG rated, but it's focused on and going to hit hardest for adults. And that's the kind of humor that they have here. But if you do have a child who's maybe a little bit older and you want to kind of have their taste palette broadened, again, it's a really easy watch. It's not a challenging movie by any means, but again, it's something where, you know, you have to have like kind of a good sense of humor and be like watching for it to kind of be like, what's the point of this? This is kind of a good, safe, soft landing entry point for movies to go somewhat against the grain, like A24 movies, to watch what the mainstream movies kids may normally watch. And there was kids in the screening who were laughing along the entire time. So again, it's a really funny, easy watch. But again, I'm just kind of thinking that some younger kids can be very like, they need action. They need kind of a big story, a big arc to kind of overcome. Whereas this is a bit more nuanced than that. It's nominated for Best Animated Feature in a stacked category against the likes of Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, which is cleaning up, including this week at the BAFTAs, and Pixar's Turning Red. But for me, it'd be easily worth a win. I probably liked it more than those, and I really like those movies as well. But whatever the case, this is a truly great movie. I can see myself going back to again and again whenever I need cheering up. Do yourself a favor and make it your business to see it. If you see any movie this week, I know it's probably going to be Ant-Man, put Marcel the Share with Shoes on your list. Please, you're going to love it. I promise you.